Hey, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at this Motorola Z6C prototype from around mid or early 2007. Now notice how I called it the Z6C and not the Rokr Z6C. And that's because though this thing is very identical to the Motorola Rokr Z6 from the Rokr lineup of music-oriented devices, this phone was not from that lineup and was instead a very cut-down version for the Verizon network. This phone is similar and they do get confused. However, there are major differences that separate it from the Rokr Z6C, and we'll be talking all about those differences in this video. But this thing is known simply as the Motorola Z6C for the Verizon network. And this one being a prototype unit will make this video much more interesting than just the standard unit, as it does have a few differences from the final model. So this is the Motorola Z6C prototype here in 2023. So as always, before jumping right in, don't forget to smash that like button down below, as it helps this video get on YouTube's algorithm. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and ring that bell notification button so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Also, if you have any questions or comments regarding the Z6C, don't forget to leave them down in the comment section below. We can start a discussion or I can answer your questions. My social media is also linked down in the description below, which includes Instagram, Discord, and Twitter. And now let's jump right into this video. Now, as always, we're going to start off with a bit of history here. Now, if you just want to skip over to different sections, you can using the segmented slider bar. The slider bar of this video is segmented, and the video is also time-stamped down in the description below. So if you want to jump to a specific section, you can do so as you wish. So let's start off with a bit of history. Now, of course, like I said, this thing was released after the Z6, the Motorola Rokr Z6, and was kind of released in its shadow and all the other more high-end Motorola devices. It was heavily cut down from the Rokr Z6, as it was not a part of the Rokr lineup despite looking very identical. It has a different OS entirely. It has your standard Verizon proprietary OS, as you can see there. The Rokr Z6 had Moto Mag X, which is a Java-based Linux OS. So it was considerably better than this standard thing that Verizon slapped onto all of their other phones as well. You can find this OS on a lot of Motorola devices from Verizon at the time. So it was very standard. They just slapped it onto every cheap Verizon CDMA device that they could release. And one of the main reasons this is not identified as a Rokr device probably had to do with the Verizon network selling it at a considerably lower price, because Rokr devices were expensive premium music phones. This was not going to be that. It doesn't have all that enhanced audio stuff like the Rokr Z6 has. Now, by the way, if I confuse Rokr Riser and I call this a Rokr device or a Riser device throughout this video, that's because I confused these as well, as so did a lot of people at the time. Many people still think this is a Rokr device. It is not. So I may confuse it throughout this video, and I apologize for that, but just note this is not a Rokr device. It's not a Riser device, neither is it a Razer device. It's just a Motorola Z device, just called the Z6C. That's all. However, it does share a few similarities, especially in terms of looks. Now, it also lacks a flash, and we'll talk about all of that as time goes on. This thing was released in 2007 December, where the Rokr Z6 was released in January of 2007, so almost a year apart. And yeah, this was released as a considerably cheaper phone on the CDMA network, which was Verizon at the time, and it was unremarkable. It got decent reviews. They said it's a great phone for the price. It got the job done. Just another Verizon device from Motorola, produced by Motorola, released by Verizon. It was nothing spectacular, but of course it had that classic Motorola slider look to it. As you can see, it still does look quite premium. It has a nice LED setup there with the lights and all that stuff, the blue LED lights, really nice there, and this sleek compact design, just like its big brother, the Rokr Z6, and all the other Z devices out there. But apart from that, it did not have anything spectacular that's worth noting. But this device, being a prototype, is quite interesting. I got it in a part slot of other Motorola prototypes as well. You can find it up here. Well, I wouldn't call it a part slot because not all of them were broken. As a matter of fact, none of them were broken. They just needed batteries. So yeah, that video up there. You can go and watch that video. It was, I think, last year that I did it, and I couldn't really get to this phone. I had other things to cover, but finally we are here, and it was with a bunch of other Motorola prototypes as well, and was quite cheap as well in that lot of devices. But yeah, let's jump into all the other details regarding this thing and go over all the slight differences that this thing has from the final release model. And I say slight because this is a network tester. It is not hardware different from the final model. It only has a few software differences and stuff printed on its body. Mechanically or hardware wise, it's exactly the same as the final model. It's what I call a software or network tester. So let's now jump into the the design and build quality. Alright, now to cover design and build quality, and I can say right off the bat, they have not compromised on design and build quality when compared to its big brother, the Rokr Z6. It's exactly the same in terms of design and build quality. Well, not in design, but build quality. It's the same really good, tough plastic that they've used, and it has a metal back as well, like the Z6, and the plastic is really, it feels really solid, doesn't feel creaky or anything like that. It's a good hard plastic, the glossy plastic, as you can see, and they definitely did not cut down in terms of design and build quality. And it has the same sliding mechanism as the Z6 as well. Let me bring it closer so you can hear the satisfying sliding mechanism. So as you heard, it's exactly the same. It's very satisfying. It definitely is reminiscent of a premium device. Even though this is not exactly the Rokr Z6C, they still stuck with that great sliding mechanism. A lot of Motorola's were known for their really satisfying sliders. So overall, a very, very well designed and sturdy, solidly built phone with a very satisfying sliding mechanism. And people had asked, what is this thing over here, this plastic bump-like thing? This is, of course, to slide the phone up and down like that, so you don't have to press the buttons and just press random stuff on the screen. That is exactly to slide the phone up and down. So that's a genius design, just to use it with one hand. So really smart thinking from Motorola over there. So up front, you can see it has the Motorola logo here and your earpiece. You have the display, you have that bump-like thing, the buttons, your quick clear, and buttons over here, camera, launch button, as you can see there, and you have your power button slash the answer button, and then you have your power button slash your decline button and your answer button over here. It can be used as a back button as well. And then you have your flat keypad over there. It's a flexible keypad that goes in. At the chin here, we have our microphone, and in this being a prototype unit, it has a identification number of some sort, 04CA-0024. I don't really know what that means, but if you know more about Motorola prototypes, let me know down in the comment section what that identification number means. I've seen this on a lot of Motorola devices, and usually it's in this format, but the numbers are different. This one's is 04CA-0024, and I've seen it on different Motorola devices with the same format but different numbers. Prototype unit, Motorola confidential proprietary. So Motorola uses proprietary instead of property. Nokia uses it property of Nokia, not for sale. Motorola does prototype unit, Motorola confidential proprietary. So a different way of saying this thing is a prototype. I've seen LG do it differently, Sony Ericsson doing it differently. Sony Ericsson does not approved prototype not approved. That's how Sony Ericsson does it. So different ways of identifying a prototype device. So now let's move on to the side of the device. As you can see, we have a USB mini type B or micro USB type B. I keep forgetting what this is called. I think it's called USB mini type B. It's type B for sure, but USB mini. And then we have the lock button over here, and then we have a voice command button over here as well. The sliding mechanism you can see from the side. Let's move on to the top. We have nothing really at the top in the open position, but if you slide it down, you have your place to put your micro SD expansion over there. And then moving on to this side, we have our volume button, and we have this thingamajig as well. I don't really know what that button does, but I'm pretty sure it can be mapped to something in settings. So I'm pretty sure that's a mappable button, and it's not mapped to anything right now, but right off the bat it doesn't do anything. So Motorola logo over there. We have our headphone jack underneath here. Let's pull that back up. So we have a, oop, that thing came flying off. Of course, that flap-like thing is broken, so it just stays on there. 3.5mm headphone jack. At this age, these things are all like the plastic is worn off, so they just sit there. At the bottom of the device, as you can see, we have a lanyard strap, place to put your lanyard strap and hang it off your neck or your wrist. And at the bottom here, we have the camera, the 2-megapixel camera. We have a bit of a design pattern-like thing, a flower pattern-like thing over there. And we have this metal back behind the display over there. That's really nice, feels really good. Metal back over here as well, that same identification number. And we have our rear firing speaker here as well. So overall, a very well-designed phone that feels really good, and they definitely did not cut down in terms of design and build quality when compared to the Rokr Z6C. Now, in the display department, the Z6C actually has a quite inferior display to the Rokr Z6. That's of course kind of expected because the displays were some of the more expensive parts at the time. The Z6C has a TFT LCD display with 65,000 colors and is 2.0 inches or 2 inches diagonally like that. While the Rokr Z6 also has a TFT LCD, however, it has 256,000 colors, which is considerably more than just 65,000 colors, and is 2.1 inches. So it's slightly bigger, but it has considerably more colors and is more vivid and bright and all of that. They do have the same resolution though, which is 240 by 320 pixels, so 240 like that, 320 like that. So they both have the same resolution and the same aspect ratio, which is 4:3. But since this has a slightly smaller 2-inch display, while the Rokr Z6 has a 2.1-inch display, this has a slight advantage in pixel density. This is 200 pixels per inch. That thing is 190 pixels per inch. But yeah, the color difference is what actually makes this a lot inferior. The size doesn't really that matter. 65,000 colors and 256,000 colors is a massive difference, and it shows quite a lot. Now, I've never used a Rokr Z6. I don't own one, but eventually I'll get my hands on one. But I can easily tell these are very basic colors. They're not meant to be lookers. Of course, they actually had to tone it down in some areas of things, and what they definitely chose is the display. Back in the day, when you go to tone down the price on a lot of things, you start cutting down on things like the display. That's just how it is. There's nothing really you can do about it. That's just how the companies at the time went about doing things. But yeah, as you can see, let us cycle through some photos that I took from this camera. Of course, they're pretty decent photos when viewed on this display, but when put on a computer they're completely different. But as you can see, it's an okay display. It's decently bright as well. It's not overly bright or anything like that. It's decently bright. The viewing angles aren't that great, as you can see. Let's go to menu. Viewing angles aren't the best. Decently bright, like I said, reasonably accurate colors. For 65,000, of course they're going to be oversaturated to make up for the lack of colors, but overall, for that price range, it was a decent usable display at the time. Alright, so let us talk about some of the internal specifications on this thing. Now, these are not smartphones, this or the Rokr Z6, so they have very limited internal specifications. I couldn't really find what the processors on these things are. They're most likely Texas Instruments or Freescale or some minor lower end lineup processor of whatever type, probably around 64 to 128 megahertz. Couldn't really find any information about them online. Not really worth mentioning them to begin with. They're usually in the 64 megahertz to 128 megahertz range for this size of phone. So definitely a single core processor, 64 to 128 megahertz, Texas Instruments or Freescale or something like that. As for other internal specifications, these have micro SD up to, I believe, 16 gigs. If it's not 16 gigs, I'll put it up here, but I believe it's up to 16 gigs. So micro SD expansion. Internal memory on the Z6C is 40 megabytes, but on the Rokr Z6 is 64 megabytes. They all have up to 1,000 entries in the phone book, so that's a dead giveaway. It's not a smartphone. Smartphones have unlimited entries. Feature phones have limited entries, so up to 1,000 entries on the phone book on both the Z6C and the Rokr Z6, and 20 dialed, 20 received, and 20 missed calls as well. In terms of Bluetooth technology, this thing has 1.2 A2DP, Bluetooth 1.2 with A2DP, and the Rokr Z6 has 2.0 with A2DP. They both don't have Wi-Fi, they both don't have GPS, they both don't have infrared, no radio either, and they both use USB Mini 2.0, USB-B type. No, I always mix this up. USB Type B Mini. There we go. That's what it's called. USB Mini Type B or USB B Type Mini, whatever the hell it's called. And yeah, that's just a quick spec rundown for these two phones. They're somewhat identical, but the Bluetooth thing is a bit different, and the Rokr Z6C has a bit more internal storage as well. So let us now go into the interface and talk about the interface. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this is a standard Verizon interface, very, very generic. I've seen a lot of Motorola phones have this at the time, flip phones, slider phones, bar style phones, very basic interface or OS that Verizon told Motorola just to slap onto their budget devices on the networks. It's very, very reminiscent of old school Verizon. So you've probably seen this, most likely even used it at some point. It has your basic stuff. You have Get It Now. You have, that's basically media. They call it Get It Now. So music, tones, pictures, and videos, blah, 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 blah. You have your stuff you can buy from their store, and you have the stuff that you already have as well. Basic stuff. Let's go back. Sometimes it doesn't really want to go back from here. There we go. Get It Now. And then we have messaging, we have contacts, we have recent calls, settings and tools, and that's all. So under Get It Now, you have all this stuff, and then I'm not going to read everything. There you go. Messaging, it has all of this stuff, and then new contact list, blah 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 blah. Recent calls. And under settings, we have a bunch of stuff as well. This thing doesn't have too much in the way of customization. There's a bit of customization. Let me show you here. You can actually set up a static word here with a limited amount of characters. As you can see, we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters. So you can have 12 characters there. And as you can see, I couldn't put the E there. So under Techformative, I couldn't put the E there. But yeah, you can change that in settings. I believe it's under display settings. Screensaver, clock format, banner. I believe that's banner, personal banner. There we go. Yeah. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 characters, like I said earlier. So there you go. You can't really put anything else, and you can change it from here. Hit OK, personal banner set, and then you have an ERI banner as well. You can set that on and off as well, and then backlit brightness, blah 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 blah. Just some basic customization. We have analog or digital clock format, and blah blah blah, stuff like just basic stuff. And weirdly, under display, if you saw that, it has camera orientation in settings here, landscape or portrait orientation. I don't believe you can do that from the camera itself. Let me just double check here. It's under picture and video, I believe. There we go. Yes, take a picture and record video is separate. So I believe you can't really do that from camera settings, but it would make sense. Let me see. Oh no, you actually can. There we go. Portrait mode. But it's kind of weird that you have it under settings separately as well. But yeah, that's basically just how they've done it. And this is your main menu, the customization banner like thing. There's basic stuff. Change the wallpaper, change the You can also change the screensaver and stuff like that. Again, very simple. There's no real name for this OS. It's a very basic proprietary OS for Motorola Verizon phones at the time. Very basic stuff. You've probably already seen it. Alright, so now for a quick game demo, and I know the game on this thing is just one of them. It's Pool Pro Online 2 by Namco, and it's a demo version, it's not the full game. But I believe all the games on here are Java games, so you can copy games or download them or buy them or whatever from the store-like thing there as well. So let's just try this, and I know it's a demo version, as you can see. You have to buy it separately, but you get a few minutes to run it as well. Let's do it without sound, because I'm not sure if this Namco stuff, sometimes the sound can be copyrighted. So let's actually do it without sound. So play online, single player. Let's do single player, 8-ball, start game, sure, whatever. How do you, okay. Where's the queue? How do you, I don't know what I'm doing. Isn't this standard pool? Okay, there we go. Yeah, very exhilarating, I know. But yeah, that's just the game that's on this phone. I'm pretty sure there may have been other games on this. Maybe they have been deleted or whatever, but that's the only game on this. It's just a pool game, whatever. But yeah, that's just a quick game demo. All right, so it's camera time, and to start things off, the Rokr Z6 didn't have a great camera either, and neither does this thing. It's most likely the same camera, honestly, but you can't really tell. But both of them had a 2-megapixel camera, as you can see there. But one thing that the Rokr Z6 has that this thing doesn't is a flash. So the Rokr Z6 had a single LED flash. This thing also has video. I'm not really sure out of the top of my head. I think it's QCIF like the Rokr Z6, but if not, I'll just put it up here and I'll put the resolution up there. I believe it's QCIF. If not, I'll just put it up there, and the frames per second as well. I have not analyzed a video sample of this thing yet, but yeah, 2-megapixel, most likely QCIF video without an LED flash, but the Rokr Z6 has an LED flash. Let us go into the camera interface here. And going to it is also quite annoying. You gotta go to picture and video and then take a picture or record a video. And there you go. That's how you take a picture. Just point and shoot. It's a fixed focus camera, of course. There we go. And you can save or erase. And then we have your options here. Resolution, you can select. There's the maximum picture ID or whatever. You have your bunch of options there. And then under more options, you have portrait mode, self-timer, brightness, white balance, shutter sound, color effects, fun frame. A few options, honestly, for a fixed focus, simple camera like this. And you can go to gallery like that. I think this is the zoom. Yep, there you go, digital zoom. And then you go into the separate video recorder app, because, you know, back in the day, that was a thing. And then you have your recording time here. You have your resolution. You can actually select resolution as well. Oh, we can actually look at the max resolution from here itself. There we go. So 320 by 240, so 240p. There we go. So 240p video. Not many options there, but then again, there aren't many options to go below 170, I guess. And then you have your options here. Brightness, white balance, duration, resolution, color effects, and full screen, etc, etc. And now that we've discussed that, let us go into the camera and video sample shot during the day using the camera from the Z6C. All right, so as with those photos, you just saw that, I mean, they're okay. It's just just how it is. It's a 2 megapixel camera. It's no big deal. It's a 2 megapixel camera. Let's just put it like that. They're nothing surprising. They're nothing great. They're okay. But now it's time to actually go into some sound settings and let's play some ringtones here. Now, some of the ringtones may be different because this thing is a prototype. But then again, this being a network test of some sort, it could be identical. But yeah, let's just actually go in and test some ringtones here and demo the speaker. We'll do a full ringtones video on this phone in a separate video, so definitely stay tuned for the full ringtones video. But as of now, let us do a set of ringtones here just to test the speaker. Let's do master volume. It's quite a loud speaker. It's down here. Quite a loud speaker, and in this apartment I can't really play stuff at max volume, so let's set it to medium here, and then let us go to call sounds, call ringtone. There we go. Play. Okay, so those were some of the ringtones on this prototype Motorola Z6C. Of course, like I said, they could vary because this thing's a prototype, but stay tuned for the full ringtones video. We'll cover all the ringtones and the other alert tones in that full ringtones video. So definitely hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for that. Now, as for additional features on this thing and the Z6, the Rokr Z6 actually, there isn't really much. I mean, these are feature phones. Of course, the Rokr Z6 was music focused, so it had a considerable amount of music enhancements built into its software, while this didn't. So apart from that, it has organizers, voice dial, voice memo, predictive text input, the whole nine. But of course, you should note that the Z6, the Rokr Z6 had an enhanced music player, of course, being from the Rokr lineup of devices, a more premium lineup of devices, and this thing being a bit of a watered down device when compared to the Rokr Z6. Apart from that, there's nothing really I can point out that's an additional feature. Of course, that button is there, that mappable button on this side, that's there. And yeah, honestly, nothing major that you could call an extra feature. These phones were budget phones, so they weren't really loaded that much. The Rokr Z6, of course, wasn't exactly budget, but it wasn't an ultra high-end phone either. There were other phones like the Z8 and the Z10, and the cancelled Z12, of course. And where's that thing? Here's the Ryzer Z12, a phone that was meant to replace the Ryzer Z10 and the Ryzer Z6, basically a touchscreen replacement for the Ryzer Z10 and the Z8, sorry. So those are the Ryzer lineup. I don't know why I'm bringing this in here, but the Ryzer and the Rokr lineup were pretty similar, but they're also different. The Ryzers used to bend at the middle, and I don't believe there was a Rokr that bent at the middle, but this, I've done a full retro style review video on this phone. This is the only phone that has been seen to be working on YouTube. I don't think anyone else has posted a video of this thing working. Well, working, because it works whenever it feels like. But yeah, you can go check that video out. It's up on my channel, the Ryzer Z12, a cancelled prototype Motorola phone. But yeah, this was a budget phone. It didn't really have too much features in the way, but that's basically all I can say about extra features. Alright, so let's take a look at the battery bay of this thing, and now I've covered some of the stuff here, barcodes and all. It had a bunch of numbers that weren't complete, of course, because this thing's a prototype. And if I bring it closer, you'll see Motorola Inc., FCC ID pending. So they've applied for an FCC ID at this point at the time this phone was manufactured. So the FCC confirmation was pending at the time, and I believe it said assembled in the United States. Right, there we go. I don't really know what those barcodes mean, so I just covered them up. Assembled in USA. So this phone was probably brought in pieces from China and assembled in the US for testing purposes. FCC ID pending, XXX, that's the model number most likely. Motorola Incorporated. So that's the battery bay on this thing. Let's take that off and put the battery back in. And the battery on this thing is actually the BQ50, but it could have been something else. I couldn't really find exactly what the battery on this phone was as it shipped. But for the Rokr Z6, it was the BC50. For this thing, it could be the BQ50, but I couldn't really find out what it shipped with. Regardless, it had about a standby time of about 380 hours and a talk time of about 5 hours. That could vary, of course, but the Rokr Z6 had a considerably better battery life, up to 400 hours of standby and up to 7 hours of talk time, and that could also translate to much more music playing time, because that was a music oriented phone. And the Rokr Z6 used a BC50, which is quite considerably less than that. The BC50 is a 720 milliamp hour battery, as I remember, and this thing, the BQ50, I believe is 910 milliamp hour. So these B series batteries can be swapped in and out as long as the cover fits, the back cover fits. So I don't know exactly what goes where, but the Rokr Z6 probably had a better processor which was more efficient, that let it do its job better. So that's why it probably had a better battery life, and it was a more premium phone, of course. That's why it got the job done better. Kind of obvious there, but yeah. That's all I can really say about this phone here in 2023. A prototype network tester for the Z6C for Verizon. Quite an interesting phone. Nothing too major in terms of differences from the final unit. Just a bunch of writing and all that stuff. Maybe some software differences like I showed you. The lack of games, maybe just a few differences. Nothing major. This thing was already ready and good to go. Just waiting on the FCC confirmation, as you saw with that sticker at the back. But yeah, this was a review of the Motorola Z6C prototype here in 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you honestly did, don't forget to smash that like button down below, as it helps this video get on YouTube's algorithm. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and ring that bell notification button so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Also, if you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them down in the comment section below. We can start a discussion, or I can answer your questions. My social media is linked down in the description below, which includes Instagram, Discord, and Twitter. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.